ready for American Shadows. Find American Shadows on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Today is a new day. It's time to move and reclaim your routine. And if pain is holding you back, The Joint Chiropractic can help with our $29 new patient special. Visit thejoint.com. The Joint Chiropractic. You're back, baby.
iHeartRadio, now number one for podcasting, presents Sunday Night Podcasts. Every Sunday, we feature one of the most listened to and most shared podcasts of the week from the 250,000 podcasts available in the free iHeartRadio app. Discover your next favorite podcasts on iHeartRadio.
From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We are joined, as always, with our super producer, Paul Mission Control Decant. Most importantly, you are here, and that makes this stuff they don't want you to know. We hope this episode finds you healthy and happy, and maybe amid grand adventure, perhaps even out on the ocean, now that so many countries are relaxing a lot of their formerly draconian lockdown policies. Today, we'd like to explore the ocean along with you, in a way. The ocean is fascinating. We know less about what goes on in the ocean now than we do about what goes on the surface of the moon. And, very few people have been to the moon. A lot of people have been on the surface of the ocean, and a lot of people have gone to the bottom, but far fewer people have returned to the top.
And one quick thing about that, as we've just been learning and as was announced by NASA today, I believe, we are sending a new little rover up to the moon called the Viper, that's supposed to be landing on the moon and going around and looking for water in 2023, which is pretty interesting.
That kind of mission is also at least partially intended to be a proving ground for later searches on Mars. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Does it come equipped with a little divining rod that just like kind of vibrates when it hits water? It just kind of like sniffs around for it?
Yeah,
more high tech than that?
4 wheels and then a small protruding divining rod.
Just
rod.
like spring loaded. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question because it goes into the concept of vibration and sound, which is what, all sound is vibration. And going back to the ocean, the biggest source of water that we are experientially familiar with as a species, we know that it is just like the surface of the planet. It's riotous with life. The thing is that the creatures in the ocean, wherever they are in the ocean or these seas of ours, they live a vastly different existence. In some cases, it's almost alien. Like we've often heard it said that cephalopods, especially the super intelligent ones like octopuses, are the closest our species has to, an example of what alien life would look like. And it's fascinating stuff, but it's also so obscured to us. It's occulted. We don't know what is happening in the ocean.
Oh, I know. And if you want to get a look at that, I really recommend I think it's called Blue Planet, or Planet Earth maybe. There's an episode about the deep, like Marianas Trench deep ocean creatures, and they look like aliens, like the anglerfish with the little light bulb thing on their heads, and then there's one called the vampire squid that looks literally like something straight out of the gates of hell. But the adaptations that happen at those depths with such little light are absolutely fascinating. And like you say, Ben, the closest thing to alien life that I think we're going to be able to ever set our eyes on in our lifetime.
At least officially, right?
Right.
Unfortunately, because the vast majority of human exploration, invention, and ingenuity depends on, the concept of a monetary economy, by far the most popular religious belief of our age, we find ourselves in a position where, as a species, we can get down to incredible depths in the ocean, but we have to propitiate to the economic gods first. That means look, pretentiousness aside, it's very, very expensive to explore the ocean. That's what we're saying. And people have always been in this push-pull over whether or not it's a good investment to explore the ocean. Militaries are one of the most powerful, militaries are the most powerful human force on or below the surface of the ocean. And because it is so difficult and so expensive to get actual people down past a certain depth for any substantial length of time, we have built tools to tell us what's going on. We've built this kind of synthetic mimicry of a natural thing that existed way before humans actually existed. We invented something called sonar. It's turned every ship into the Marvel comic book hero Daredevil. Here are the facts.
That's a really good way to put it. That's exactly what sonar does. It's also it stands for sound navigation and ranging, and it's extremely common. It's used in almost every vessel that is large enough to travel around for any reason on the ocean. And just like you said, like Daredevil, it allows us to see without visualizing. It's using sound to essentially visualize what exists both in the depths and out in front of you, and basically in 360 degrees around you within the water. And it really is fascinating that we were able to figure out how this works, just humanity in general. And it is really, it's cool how it mimics natural processes that a lot of other animals do.
Yeah, and it's an old technology. It's much older than you might think. A lot of people who are perhaps in the younger demographic of our fellow listeners may understandably think sonar is something that came about after, what would you say, guys, World War II, maybe?
Yeah, it seems kind of techie. I mean, it almost has like a futuristic vibe when you think about, the readout and the way it looks like on a submarine or a naval vessel with like the grid and like, sending out the pings and being able to recreate, map topography underwater using sound. That sounds pretty kind of Brave New Worldy and futuristic. But we also have to remember that this is a quote unquote technology that exists in the natural world and that we're kind of just mimicking, that we've sort of hijacked from, organic beings like whales and dolphins. No,
you're absolutely right. So you can imagine how, let's say someone studying animals, bats even, or anyone else any other animal that's using echolocation, but perhaps specifically an animal that's using sound within the water, within the ocean to either communicate or to figure out where it is and what dangers lurk ahead. So you imagine that studying animals, someone in 1822 created sonar. Like, imagine that. There's at least the precedent, the thing that existed that became sonar. There was a gentleman named Daniel Culloden. He stuck a bell underwater, and he was using this to calculate the speed of sound as it's traveling through water rather than air. Like it's very, very different, and it does travel very differently. So that occurred way back in 1822. Then you do have to fast forward a little bit further to 1906, when modern sonar, as we generally understand it, exists today. There's a guy named Lewis Nixon who built what we would consider to be a sonar-like device, and it was specifically made to detect icebergs.
Yeah. And so this is a silly question. I'm not meaning to sound flippant, but was that technology around when the Titanic got iceberg headed? Would they have just had visual on that, or that would have been in the late 1800s? No, that's not true.
No, it was after 1906. It was after the Lewis Nixon invention, but
it's a shame.
This is widespread, and that's we could call it modern sonar, but modern sonar is really galvanized by war, like so many other so many other great technological breakthroughs. It happens as a way for people to figure out how to kill more people or to figure out how to keep more people from killing them.
You're listening to Sunday Night Podcasts, featuring one of the biggest podcasts of the week on the free iHeartRadio app, now #1 for podcasting.
This is a Sprite, and it tastes exactly like it sounds. That first hit of cool, crisp refreshment on your tongue, followed by that familiar chorus we all know by heart. Sprite, thirst for yours.
Head to your local Safeway for the cool, crisp lemon lime taste of Sprite. Copyright 2020, The Coca-Cola Company. All rights reserved.
What does COVID-19 have to do with losing your home? Well, a lot. Cybercrime is up 75% since the virus hit us. Rudy Giuliani here, and if you own a home or property, look out for home title theft, one of the fastest growing crimes. The legal titles to all our homes are online now. All thieves have to do is forge your signature on a quitclaim deed stating you sold your home. Then they take out loan after loan on your home and leave you in debt. You won't know until late payment or eviction notices show up. Homeowners insurance doesn't cover you, and neither do common identity theft programs. That's why I protect my home with Home Title Lock. Home Title Lock puts a barrier around your home's title. The instant they detect tampering, they shut it down. Go to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim. Then use code Rudy for 30 free days of protection. I protect my home with Home Title Lock. Go to HometitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're already a victim. That's code Rudy at HometitleLock.com.
When life gives you pickles, and there have been a whole lot lately, it's time to make a sandwich. Or just let Mr. Pickles make one for you. We've got a sandwich for any kind of pickle you find yourself in, or just for regular good old lunch. No matter how the Mr. Pickles sandwich finds you, we hope it leaves you much happier, or at least full, especially if it's the barbecue tri-tip sandwich, because it is back. We know y'all missed it, and if you didn't miss it, it's because you never had it. Well, now's your shot. So get your barbecue tri-tip sandwich and all Mr. Pickle sandwiches with convenient curbside pickup and delivery today. Find out more about all the options at mrpickles.com. And if you're into saving your money, and we have a feeling you might be, you can download the Mr. Pickles app wherever apps are available. After all, we're hashtag in this pickle together. So this is our way of helping out. One Mr. Pickle sandwich at a time. Head to mrpickles.com for more info and our menu items. Mr. Pickles, in this pickle together.
Apple News Plus has added local San Francisco news. Now you can keep up with all the latest events, politics, and culture happening in your city every day. Start your free 1-month trial of Apple News Plus today inside the Apple News app. New subscribers only, terms apply.
My name is Rebecca. I struggled with depression for years. I thought I needed cigarettes to cope. But then I started losing my teeth. That was a wake-up call. I was able to quit smoking, and then I started running. Now I feel a lot better about where I'm going. My tip is, when life gives you a wake-up call, answer it.
Smoking doesn't help with depression. Quitting can. For free help, visit cdc.gov/quitnow. A message from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
You're listening to Sunday Night Podcasts, featuring one of the biggest podcasts of the week on the free iHeartRadio app, now with over 250,000 podcasts to explore.
You could kind of imagine it, Ben. Like, oh, all right, Nixon, so this thing can detect icebergs, right? Well, can it detect, name the adversary?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Can it detect Germans?
And submarines, of course, are an episode all their own in the modern day. They're fascinating things. In World War II, they were horrible places to be. And in World War I, that was even more true. But these things could be the concern about what submarines would become in World War II really triggered this research in sonar. And sonar, not to belabor the point, sonar works in a pretty straightforward way. The way we can understand it at a high level without getting into too much of the physics here is that it emits sound waves. Bing, bing, bing. And it measures how long the echo of those sound waves takes to return after it hits something. That means, for example, if we're all on the Conspiracy cruise, that's spelled SEA, and we are using sonar in shallow water, then our pings are going to return to us more quickly because they are traveling a shorter distance. But if we're over a very deep part of the water, then it's going to take longer for those sound waves to return. This is common knowledge. It's how bats work. It's how Daredevil works. There's nothing particularly scary about it yet. There are two types of sonar, though. The first one is kind of what we described, active sonar. Makes the sound, makes the ping, waits for the ping, and then you're like, oh, okay, there we are. Use much lower frequencies, and we'll probably have some onomatopoeia here in today's episode, but the lowest long-distance active sonar kind of makes this like this boom, gong, gong sound, and it's valuable. Boats, ships need this. We use sonar for a lot of stuff, but there's another one you need to know about, and that is passive sonar.
Yeah, passive sonar listens, but doesn't transmit. And these are often used by militaries, but scientific research uses these systems as well for entirely different applications. Passive sonar systems usually have large databases of sonic information that they collect. A computer system can use these databases to identify different classes of ships or types of actions they might be taking, like speed or a particular type of weapon that they're releasing. And even, the make and model of the ship. Sonar is also a super valuable tool for recreating topography of underwater landscapes, nautical charts and maps, locating various underwater hazards, mapping of the seafloor, looking for shipwrecks, or let's just take it a step further, just because we're all dreamers here. Let's call it buried treasure. And today it's used over more than 70% of the world's oceans. So, like we teased earlier, this is not something that man just invented out of whole cloth. This is something that whales use as well, and other underwater creatures. Whales in particular use it to know how to move around, to how to make sure they're not running into any icebergs or battleships or what have you, or just any kind of obstacles. Now, they're large creatures, and fascinating ones to boot. Even more fascinating than the whole concept we're talking about here, which is sonar. A lot of folks out there in podcast land are probably going to be surprised to learn just how much we do not understand about whales in the year 2020.
Yeah, we are embarrassingly, cartoonishly clueless about a lot of aspects of whales in general. I want to separate a couple things. When we talk about whales and sonar, we have to remember, first off, that there are quite a few different types of whales. Often, I think, when we hear whales, just the term, we think of the largest whale, right? The blue whale. That is what's called a baleen whale. They've got those weird plates. They swim through the ocean. They just digest a bunch of very small things. That's
stuff just funnels in.
Yeah, that's just their bag. They stuck with it. They're very good at it, and they're huge. And then there are toothed whales. A dolphin is like an example of a toothed whale. These are the ones that use echolocation to move around the ocean. And echolocation, like we said earlier, it's the natural world's predecessor to sonar. Whales have what you could call a language. There's a lot of research that's gone into the language of different whales, the ideas of the songs and so on. So for whales that are using echolocation, they're communicating in high whistles and pulse bursts of sounds and then clicks. And this is interesting. This is something I did not know. The clicks made by toothed whales are the loudest sounds made by any marine mammal, which means that once upon a time, before the age of the Anthropocene, they were the loudest regular sounds in the ocean. And it sounds hyperbolic, but it is insane. Like they can use this. They can use these things in a weaponized way too. They're mapping the seafloors. They swim. They're mapping underwater obstacles, like you said, Matt. Depth of water, shorelines, figuring out where other animals are, and then there's this theory that's pretty new that says maybe some of their high intensity focused sounds are almost like the weapons in Dune. Maybe they're stunning or disorienting prey. Maybe they're attacking with sound. I mean, that's pretty crazy, and the science is pretty compelling. It's also a very sensitive trait. That's why, we see that animals tend to have a primary sense, sort of a lead singer in the band of their senses. For humans, we're a visual creature, right? We have taste and smell and sound and stuff, and they're all very important, but we like to see stuff. And for many of these animals, their protagonist in their gang of senses, the leader of their sensory heist crew, is sound, is this echolocation, which makes sense because you can't see very well at certain depths of the ocean, right? It's more difficult. And so, of course, it's going to be those instruments on their bodies are going to be more sensitive, the same way that dogs are primarily olfactory creatures. They live by their sense of smell. That's why if you don't want to be a jerk, don't bop a dog or a cat on the nose. They will be infuriated with you. That's a really interesting thing to talk about there, Ben, just about how sensitive the sensors are on them, on toothed whales, but also just the different uses of sounds that they emanate. And, we're talking about those clicks and being able to almost weaponize them as like an audio flashbang or something to be able to use like that. They've also got sounds, and not just toothed whales. You can also think about a couple other different kinds, gray whales, bowhead whales. They have behaviors that are considered to be avoidance behaviors or like escape behaviors, and the sounds that they can emanate when essentially distressed are extremely loud, and some of the other louder things that would have existed in the ocean. Just again, fascinating creatures. We have a ton to learn, and we're talking mostly about toothed whales here. But if you go back to the baleen whales, it's not as though they're just silently trawling the waters and going around. These are the animals that you would hear if you've ever heard anyone talk about a whale song, or if you've heard any recordings perhaps of something that would be called a whale song. These whales do make a lot of sounds, and they communicate through these sounds with each other. And again, it's the same kind of thing we would talk about. Where is the food? Where are we going? Where are you? Here I am. At least that's our current understanding, and we can only assume that it gets much, much more complicated than that. We just don't have a way to translate yet. We do know that there are dialogue or accent differences in different groups of certain whales. We know that some of these communications seem intergenerational, right? That they are taught to their young. There's also a heartbreaking story of a one tone deaf whale that was excluded from its community. But we'll leave that heartbreak to you to find, dear listener.
iHeartRadio for podcast discovery. This is Sunday Night Podcasts, your chance to hear the biggest trending podcasts each week from the free iHeartRadio app.
Estrella Insurance offers clients the lowest price on car insurance. Guaranteed. That's because no other agency works with more insurance companies than Estrella. Call 1-888-511-7722 or visit estrellainsurance.com.
Pretty easy drive right now through Miami-Dade and Broward with no major accidents reported. We're still getting an earlier vehicle fire off the ramp from southbound Turnpike to Sunrise. We have a disabled vehicle northbound on the Turnpike just after Commercial Boulevard and another stalled vehicle, Turnpike Extension northbound after Okeechobee. But our cameras are showing no delays on I-95 or I-75. I'm Paul Cross, News Radio 610 WIOD.
With moisture in place this afternoon, some more heavy rain will be possible. Showers and storms continue to pop up behind your 87. More rain will develop overnight with a low of 79 and scattered showers and thunderstorms on Monday with a high in the upper 80s. With updates around the clock on South Florida's Severe Weather Station on the Weather Channel's Jeff Maurer on News Radio 610 WIOD.
Much of the Florida Panhandle has a tropical storm warning up for Tropical Storm Sally. Forecasters expect direct landfall near the mouth of the Mississippi River Tuesday as a hurricane, but say parts of our state could get 1 to 3 feet of storm surge and flooding. Florida reports only 7 deaths from the coronavirus today. Sunday usually sees the smallest numbers of the week, but 1 death came when a Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy succumbed to the virus yesterday. Deputy Angela Chavers was 44 years old. Michael Bloomberg, who spent $1 billion of his own money on a failed bid for president, says he will spend $100 million in Florida to make President Trump's bid for re-election fail. The former mayor of New York says he wants to let Joe Biden's campaign focus more resources on other battleground states. Florida's 29 electoral votes could decide the election. With Florida's News, I'm John McQuiston.
If you've recently recovered from COVID-19, you have something powerful inside you. They're called antibodies, and they're found in your plasma. Plasma is the liquid part of your blood that contains antibodies, which keep your body working well and fighting off deadly viruses. Plasma from people who've had COVID-19 could be crucial to helping others fight off the virus. Recovering from COVID-19 makes you unique. Donating your plasma makes you a hero. To donate, please go to thefightisinuS.org.
Hey, it's Mobile Mike. We know there's a lot of choices for a great delicatessen food in Fort Lauderdale. However, there's only one deli in Fort Lauderdale that packs so much of its tradition and taste into its overstuffed sandwiches, deli platters, desserts, and everything else they do. It's the New York Marina Deli on the 17th Street Causeway. Call them now for all your catering needs at 954-524-DELI. Fill your belly at the New York Marina Deli. Woo-hoo!
From unlikely heroes to world-changing tragedies and powerful examples of the American spirit, there's a whole side of American history that's been pushed to the shadows.
Within a few short years, radium's future grew to be the new bright and shiny object. But Marie's beautiful, glowing miracle had a darker side.
Get ready for a tour of American history unlike any other. Get ready for American Shadows. Find American Shadows on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Mobile Mike here with your wake-up call. It's time for you to step up your game with Mobile Mike Public Relations. Social media management, content development, broadcast radio and television, brand activation, vehicle wraps, and t-shirt printing. Connect with us on social media or call 888-WE-RAP-IT.
iHeartRadio's new podcast, Criminalia, explores the intersection of history and true crime. Criminal activities linger in the margins of history, and lady poisoners offer up some of the most compelling tales. But were they perpetrators or sympathetic characters? We're going to find out.
Nellie, it would turn out, was also a fellow poisoner.
Listen to Criminalia on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
What if you could build a 6-figure retirement income in just 5 payments? You heard right. In just 5 payments, set up a 6-figure retirement cash flow for as long as you live. There's a retirement crisis in America because the pension system of old has been raided and destroyed, and Social Security is already running out of money. Most Americans are shocked to find out they need over $2.5 million to have $100,000 in retirement. A new approach is required to solve this crisis. That's why this revolutionary 5-pay retirement program was released, allowing everyday Americans to use bank money to create a retirement cash flow without relying on Social Security or pensions. Even people who are on track have shifted money to this new strategy because it accelerates the amount they'll have at retirement or can allow them to stop working years sooner. So if you're over 50 and want a bigger, better retirement in just 5 payments, call Wealth Education Group now at 800-375-3232 to see if you qualify for this brand new program. Plus, as a free bonus, you'll get the 5-pay retirement guide and video. Call 800-375-3232. 1-800-375-3232. 1-800-375-3232.
You're listening to Sunday Night Podcasts, featuring one of the biggest podcasts of the week on the free iHeartRadio app, now number 1 for podcasting.
Noel, I think you said you found a pretty good onomatopoeic description of what a whale song is like written out. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was pretty remarkable to see it on paper, and I tried to pronounce it out for you guys off mic. I'm going to give it another shot here. I'm not going to do an impression of a whale. I'm just going to kind of do it like a human reading onomatopoeia. It's something along the lines of blurgaroo wah wah wah.
That was beautiful.
You can also find recordings, of course, of whale songs, I believe, from different years, different parts of the ocean. Very well aware of this. There is not at this point, this is one of the questions I would ask if I were hearing this for the first time. There's not at this point what we would understand as a good translation, right? There's not, there have been attempts to communicate with whales through technological means. But right now, sadly enough, one of the most effective ways that humans have communicated with whales is through sonar. We have to talk about how these processes interact. Okay, so we understand echolocation. We understand sonar, right? We've got the basics. So, two thought experiments. Imagine you're walking in a dim, gigantic room. You're trying to find your way to the door, to an egress. All of a sudden, thousands of laser lights are shining into your eyes, or thousands of flashlights. What they're doing is whomever is using those lights is illuminating the room for themselves, but they are blinding you in the process. That's part of the reason that police in intimidation tactics will make sure to keep a light on your eyes. It puts the person getting the light shown on them at a tremendous disadvantage. It's a very similar thing with whales. Or since we're talking about sound, right, rather than talking about sight, imagine that you're hanging out with the four of us at an Applebee's. I say the four of us because Paul is, of course, there too. Oh, to be in an Applebee's right now. The apps, right? And we're having a chat, you know, maybe Matt is going up to, I don't know, do something important. We'll write the script later. And then Noel, you're going to say something to him like, hey, don't forget the, make that 2 margaritas or something. But right as Noel's going to say that, somebody we don't know, maybe never will meet again, burst into the lobby and they blast sound. So much sound that it's like when you can feel the bass in your bones times 20. Forget trying to tell Matt about that margarita. Our eardrums are bleeding. We're starting to lose consciousness. And then when the sound passes, we are damaged.
Yeah, I mean, any crossover listeners to Ridiculous History will remember an episode we did with a preeminent expert on underwater explosions named Dr. Rachel Lance, and we talk about the sinking of the Hunley, which is a super rudimentary Civil War submarine, which I didn't even know was a thing, but it's basically like a Flintstones car submarine that you crank with your feet. Really, really dangerous. Every time they did a test run of it, people died, and then it actually did sink a warship. But But Dr. Lance, her area of expertise was talking about the way these underwater shock waves affect our bodies and our internal organs, and they can cause serious internal damage to our viscera. And that's kind of what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah. And with those two ideas, this at the very least complicates things. So that's our question today. What is happening here? What's happening under the surface of the ocean, and how are you complicit?
So if we go back to the early 1900s, when we would consider that era to be the beginning of sonar, let's say, you know, around World War I, really, then we would have to go much further. We're talking 60-something years to get to around 1971, which is what we would say is the beginning of academic concerns about what sonar is doing to wildlife, the effects that it's having on whales and other creatures and animals in the ocean. And there were two men that were looking into this, Roger Payne and Douglas Webb. They went on to prove that before humans had ships, small ships, large ships, massive ships, just traveling across the ocean and within the ocean, before we were doing that, the tones from creatures called fin whales, so it's a specific type of whale, the tones that they were generating and the processes we've talked about prior to this, they could travel as far as 4,000 miles within the ocean and still be discernible against just the ambient general background noise that exists when you're in the ocean. 4,000 miles, the approximate distance of the Amazon River from the beginning, from the mouth to the end.
So they could say, what up? I'm a cool whale from the mouth of the Amazon River looking for a cool whaleette to hang out with. And then even if they were on the very far end of the Amazon River, 4,000 miles away, these other whales could hear them.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Terrible example.
Well, I mean, it's pretty close to the internet when you think about just how large the ocean is and how far away that is if you're talking about 4,000 miles in every direction.
Yeah, that's a good point, Matt. A lot of people don't realize that. The internet is 4,000 miles long. That is a hard limit that has been put into place. We did not make the rules. We just want to arm you with the information. But there's another stat there that is, I think, even more amazing. I mean, you mentioned background noise, right? The ocean is like, if you've ever been in a forest when nothing bad is happening, then you realize that it is cacophonous. You know, there's so much noise going on. And if you don't hear a lot of noise, it's either because you're there or because something worse than you is there. So be careful. And it's amazing when you think about it.
If you look at what the Animal Welfare Institute, as well as the NOAA and a couple other organizations, at least what they have on their websites, what they say, the research is, and this isn't completely accurate, but you can look a little further into this if you wish, but the relative sound level and intensity per decibels of ambient ocean noise levels it's a range from around 55 to 85 decibels just as a standing. And if you compare that to what the effective levels of LFA sonar are, that's around 230 and higher decibels. So just if you can go ahead and imagine that's what we're talking about here.
I mean, that I think is a stunning difference there. It also reminds me that we know that in the days before propeller-driven watercraft, which obviously predates sonar, these whale noises and sounds could travel even further. They were even louder because, of course, these propellers make noise pollution as well. The whales in the halcyon days of pre-propeller ocean, they could make sounds that would travel 13,000 miles. That's an estimate. And the reason it's an estimate is because that's more than the diameter of Earth. So imagine being able to communicate so well if we're whales, we're swimming around and we yell, hey, then later behind us, we hear ourselves saying, hey. I mean, that's not going to happen because there are a lot of obstacles and land and stuff. But if there were an uninterrupted sphere, that would be possible. It's crazy. It's the shot heard around the world probably came from a whale instead of a person.
It does make you think that maybe creatures that exist in the water, just, as it is a water planet, were the ones that were meant to be the intelligent species that evolved. That's going to take me down a rabbit hole for another time.
It's like the old Mitchell and Webb sketch, where these two Nazis are looking at each other and one of them goes, "Are we the baddies? Like, are we the bad guys?"
On your hat.
Right. So we know that just like there are different types of whales, just like there are different types of ships, there are different types of sonar. So maybe let's talk a little bit about something called mid-frequency sonar. There's been research on this. Think of low frequency, high frequency, mid-frequency. It's the Goldilocks of sonar.
You're listening to Sunday Night Podcasts, featuring one of the biggest podcasts